Hi guys, you're here with me, John the Taxidermy Witch. Let's have a seat and talk about Egypt. So as you guys know, last night, Sunday night at 5, I did my first Sunday night at 5 live feed. It was very successful. Thank you to those of us who joined, me and Irene. We had a lot of fun making that video for you guys. And if I talk uncomfortably, it's because I don't wear lipstick often. But I can say this. Bastet told me to. Bastet told me to put on this lovely dress and show it to you. It's a dress I've had on here for quite some time. And it's really beautiful. It kind of has some like brocade pattern on it. It's actually a black slip over a red dress, right? And it has these beautiful like tassels that are kind of 20s that hang down at about knee level. And in the back it's gorgeous. It's just a lovely open back with this top piece here. And I'm wearing lipstick because I pulled my hair back. But it still feels uncomfortable to talk with it on. So yeah. Alright. This episode is kind of special. Basically, it's the first time in 3 weeks that I've gotten behind on my daily episodes. And so I know that you guys will say, oh, it's no big deal. But to me it is. I started making those daily episodes so I could keep myself on track. Because I've always had a problem with my like self-esteem and getting things done and ticking it off the list and all that. So, in order to make myself not feel bad, I'm doing a super special episode. And so we missed Saturday Night Lore. And I know I have a few of you that really enjoy it. And we missed Egyptology Sunday, which I felt like was something that was irreplaceable, and Bastet would be so angry at me. But actually, after Irene and I got done filming, we just sat on the couch to watch a movie and I fell asleep on her. And next thing I know, she's like, Jen! And I'm like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I'm so sleepy. And the reason I missed Lore is because I stayed up the whole night before she came over to clean. Which is why I have friends over. If I didn't invite friends over, my house would never be clean, I swear. So, like deep clean, you know, where you like actually get in the corners and doodaloo. So, in order to make up for that, I did some meditations with Bastet this morning. I was like, I'm not getting off track, especially because it's Monday and that's my Fae offering, and I'm never ever going to get off track with the Fae because, from what I hear, they totally, like, they don't give you, you know, second redemptions on that. They're like, take it out on you. So, or they can, you know, but they make it known that, like, you forgot about my offering, so I won't be doing that. But today I'm doing a special one to celebrate the lore and the Egyptology, missed on Saturday and Sunday, and I'm going to be doing Egypt in the Kitchen with Scott Cunningham via this book, Wicca in the Kitchen, because this book has lore. And when I was just flipping through, when Alex goes, hey, let's look up fig qualities to figure out what pot we were going to plant the fig in, right next to fig was Egypt. And there's just loads of pages there highlighted. So I went through all the pages and I was like, rad, we're going to do Egyptology in the Kitchen for my special makeup episode and read some lore out of this book. So that's what we're doing. And I hope you're excited because I am. I have a gold and black candle here that I made for Bastet. It's a gold candle that I poured black wax into from the death oil that we made. And then I have the puppies here, and I just call them the puppies. They're not puppies, okay. And then I have my skull candle with a red, because Bastet loves red. So, And I don't have a Bastet statue yet. I'd really like to have one, but she's told me multiple times every time I've saved up money to get one, not to spend it on that, buy herbs instead, or buy this instead, you know, honor her in different ways. So, thank you, Bastet. First thing we have to say, first thing it talks about is in chapter 4, under the ritual of eating. Our lives still contain vestiges of these... Okay, well, I'll just start with the beginning. Eating is a simple practice. We put food into our mouths and then we chew and swallow it. Nothing mystical about that, right? Perhaps not, but because food's because food's importance, it has been linked with politics, social structures, legal systems, health maintenance, magic, and, oh yes, religion. Our lives still contain vestiges of these earlier practices. Prayer, or saying grace before meals, perhaps the most common. It is popular not only in Christianity, but also in many other religions. The urge to give thanks for food prior to eating it has its origins in the pagan sacrifice common in ancient Egypt, Sumner, Greece, Rome, and many other cultures. Portions of food were burned or placed in offering bowls. The food is now simply blessed. The idea today is the same. Verbally or psychologically linking food with deity. Long ago, humans spent most of their time ensuring a steady supply of food, which could be wiped out by fires, droughts, insect infestations, torrential rains, storms, and unseasonal freezes. Unable to physically prevent such catastrophes, humans naturally turned to their deities for protection. People continue to offer food to deities in a variety of religions around the world, especially on feast days. This is even found in some Christian groups. So, you know, a little bit about Egypt and a lot about other stuff in there. But, you know, the ritual of eating. At Japanese food, at the end of the night, they sit down and they say, "Tatakimasu," and it means, like, bless this food, thank you for this food before you eat it. And that's not something that's tied to religion, it's tied to just in general, you know. So it's interesting how different cultures have different ways of blessing their food, and maybe they're not even tied to religion. So it's something that we've done for a long time, I guess. And I just made all these little Egypt bookmarks as I went through to make sure I stayed organized for you guys and on point and on topic. Okay, so now we're reading out of Breads and Grains, chapter 8. Earlier European civilizations dedicated grain to state deities. Osiris in Egypt, and then there's loads of other ones. For all the different, so like it says in Rome there were these ones, in Mexico it was these ones. So if you're interested in those other deities, let me know in the comments and I'll look it up for you, no problem. Bread, the basic product of grain, was offered to the deities. Ra, Ammon, Ptah, and Nekbet received their share in Egypt. And then it goes on to say which other ones in the other sections. The ancient Egyptians, whom Herodotus described as the bread eaters, probably invented leavened bread. Along with onions and beer, it became a basic part of the diet. The Egyptians offered bread to the deities and to sacred animals, including cats. The stocked tombs with enormous amounts of the divine food for future use by the deceased. They are said to have baked 50 varieties of bread in numerous shapes. Some were heavily spiced and salted, though the priests and priestesses dedicated to certain deities avoided salted breads. Bread pigs formed from dough were sometimes sacrificed in place of live pigs for those who were too poor to afford to sacrifice a live pig. The bread pig was accepted as a suitable sacrifice in ancient Egypt. Very interesting. Okay, and next we go into... It talks about it under lettuce, okay, and how it is used in Egypt. So the lettuce lore is, lettuce was sacred to the god Min in ancient Egypt. Min, whose graphic depictions as a phallic god were deemed obscene 100 years ago, also ruled over vegetation of all kinds. Lettuce seems to have been his favorite due to its greenness and the fact that the core, when squeezed, exudes a milky sap that was probably associated with semen. Lettuce was naturally related to the act of procreation and fertility. It was commonly stocked in tombs and offered to men. Interesting stuff. I don't think I've done a lettuce video yet. Mushroom. Lore. Pharaohs in ancient Egypt ate mushrooms, but the common people did not. Romans believed that mushrooms provided strength to the body. Olive. Lore. The olive was sacred to Aten in ancient Egypt, A-T-E-N. Olive oil, which was in great demand in the ancient world, actually led to the downfall of Greece. And it goes on to say why, and that is very interesting. I should do an olive video because that was cool stuff. Onion. I've done up an onion video. It's actually really long and so interesting, you guys. So interesting. But when we just are talking about Egypt and onion. Lore. According to ancient Egyptian incantations, onions were included in charms designed to keep potentially harmful ghosts from children. Celebrants at winter solstice festivals in Egypt wore onions around their necks. Onions also played a role in the mummification process. Though it has often been written that the pyramids were built by onion and garlic-fed slaves, all Egyptians ate onions in those days. Onions, bread, and beer made up the basic diet of the ancient Egyptians. Not too bad. No, on a health note, very bad, but on a note of fun, maybe not too bad. Okay, and now it mentions it a bit in the apple. Lore. They are a valued food in ancient Egypt. Ramses III offered 848 baskets of apples to Hapi, H-A-P-Y, the Egyptian god of the Nile. Okay. And the pomegranate. The oh so beautiful, luscious, and gorgeous pomegranate. I love the lore of the pomegranate. Especially talking about, who is it? Persephone? Yeah, interesting. Okay, so lore. Representations of pomegranates abound in the art of antiquity, such as the famous pomegranate-shaped silver jar found in Tutankhamun's tomb. The fruits were used as money, barter, and cash in ancient Egypt. That's really interesting. Okay, next we are talking about watermelon. Yes, we are, and it is the lore here. The watermelon was introduced to Egypt in about 2000 BCE. The ancient Egyptians mixed watermelon juice with wine and gave this drink to ill persons who were believed to be possessed by illness-causing demons. Watermelon was mythological related, should be Lee, shouldn't it? Related to the god Set. And Egyptian women may have eaten watermelon in prescriptions designed to cause weight gain. That's interesting. because we all think of it as a weight loss or a cleansing food. I've used it to lose weight. Okay, I want to say this because I think it's important to say. Spices once were more costly than gold. They were important, this is in chapter 12, Spices and Herbs. Spices were once more costly than gold. They were imported at great expense from distant lands. Lower into the paragraph, we say, in Egypt, Greece, and Rome, spices were burned and sacrificed to the deities and were added to remedies. It took hundreds of years and sharp drops in cost before Europeans began flavoring foods with spices. Like, they were only meant for medicine at that point. Isn't that interesting? You know, everybody, this is a little tiny tangent rant, everybody says, you know, oh, Chinese medicine, I don't know, that's so new. No, it is not. Allopathic medicine and pills are new. They've only been around for max like 300 years. We have been doing herbs and herbalism and Chinese medicine for 5 to 10,000 plus years. So calling this an alternative therapy, this massage, acupuncture, and Chinese medicine is a joke. And it sucks because it's the newer generation that might not know all this stuff, and we are taught to listen to doctors. Doctors are only given 6 weeks of nutritional training in their 12 years of training before they're a specialist or whatever. Holy shit. Never ask your doctor about food. Find a naturopath. Find a nutritionalist. These are my opinions. I'm off my rant, and if you want any information like how do I find one in my city, I'll help you find a naturopath, an acupuncturist, or a Chinese herbalist in your city. And I should do a snippet video on that, and I will. But I call out to you all if you need help finding one. I'm not going to help you with your insurance company, but I will ask my naturopath, Sarah Gallegos in Seattle, if she knows of anybody in or near your city, and if she doesn't, I'll help you find one on Google, okay? And someday I'll tell you the story of how acupuncture and Chinese herbs are what is keeping my dad alive well past his expiration point, because he was so close to dying 12 years ago before he started herbs and acupuncture. And he's not a healthy man now, but he is doing so much better, you know. And yeah, he's getting close again to the end, but we've had 12 more years with him. It's just amazing to think of. And that other people could have that much more time, you know, or just so much of a better of life, quality of life, if he would have just started that earlier, you know. So we'll do a video on that. I'm sorry to interrupt this. So yeah, spices way before were used first for medicines and for burning to the gods as offerings before they even thought about using them for something as vanity as food and nutrition. Okay? Okay. Bring it back in, Jen. Focus. Bring it back in and focus. Bring it back in and focus. Okay. Those bottles of cloves that we find so expensive today, approximately $3 an ounce in retail, would have at one time started wars. Men killed and were killed for them. For cloves. For cloves. For cloves. Crazy, right? Crazy. Alright, now we're on to page 154, and we're chapter 13, talking about honey, sugar, chocolate, carob, and maple syrup. And it shows up under, for Egypt, it shows up under honey, of course. Think Cleopatra. I make a lovely Cleopatra soap that you add fresh goat's milk to, or goat milk from the store, and it's made of turmeric and calendula flowers, and it is a goddess soap for sure. Fresh parsley, fresh mugwort. Oh my goodness. Oh, I gave some to Irene. Irene, did you ever try it and like it? Let me know. Oh, look, the horns. Okay, according to one Egyptian myth, the god Ra wept. The tears that dripped from his eye turned into the bees that produced the first honey. Honey was a favorite offering to Min, the Egyptian god usually depicted with an erection, who oversaw, among other things, human fertility. The Egyptians also used honey in medicine. Indeed, it is both antiseptic and antibiotic, meaning you can use it internally to cure infections and externally on your wounds to cure infections, okay? Honey's high cost in earlier times probably contributed to its divine status. In Egypt, Sumner, Babylon, Greece, and Rome, honey was used in offerings to the gods and goddess. And the reason I brought up that Cleopatra soak was because you add honey to it. Preferably a beautiful raw manuka honey, but definitely not a honey bear, okay? Just omit the honey if you're doing that, because those honey bears is not the honey that you want to apply to your body. It's not the honey you want to eat either. Ask me why if you're interested in the comments. Okay, so now it's showing up under carob. Lore. Carob, a chocolate substitute that was a found flavor among health food aficionados, isn't new. Its pods were used to produce a sweet beer in ancient Egypt. I would love to taste a sweet carob beer. Like, that sounds amazing. Maybe even with a little clove in there. I like it. Alright. Now where are we on to? It's showing up in Sesame. And I wanted to say one thing as well. I'm going to continue reading past the Egypt part into the end of Rome, because lately Hecate's been calling to me, and that's kind of an interesting thing, for a lot of reasons why. I could quickly probably tell you where we're at in video time. Nope, I can't. We'll talk about Hecate in a different video. But, lore. Sesame was known in Egypt since at least 2000 BCE and probably earlier. Grecian brides... Oh wait, that's Grecian. Okay, that's Egypt there. And next, we're on to chapter 15, talking about salt, vinegar, soups, and noodles, and we're in the salt section. Salt played important roles in early religions. Some priests and priestesses of ancient Egypt were forbidden to eat salt due to its connection with the god Set. Other sects, however, did use salt. Interesting. I do know that salt muddles meditations, so if you're really trying, and your psychic abilities, things that muddle your psychic abilities, you really want to like taper down on in your diet. So that's a great video idea too. Alright, now we're on to chapter 16, foods from the seas and rivers. Fish, lore. The Egyptian god Ra was reputedly guided on his journey into the underworld by a fish. Naturally, this specific type of fish was eaten to relieve blindness in ancient Egypt. What's the specific type? It doesn't go on to say. If somebody knows or could find out, let me know. The Egyptians offered fish to Isis, my goddess, one of my beautiful goddesses. Amon, Aten, Ra, Amun-Ra, Cunningham, Hapi, and many other deities. Priests dedicated to Osiris didn't eat certain kinds of fish due to their mythological entanglements. Thousands of mummified fish have been found in Egyptian tombs and temples. That's interesting. Really interesting. Maybe because they needed a fish to lead them wherever they were going to go, like that Ra legend goes. Now we're in the section that's talking about wine, and in chapter 17. The earliest Mesopotamian civilizations drank and revered beer. Pre-dynastic Egyptians enjoyed the beverage as early as 5000 BCE. Sumerian tablets dating to 2800 BCE mention 19 different types of beer. The first public beer house bar seems to have been established in Egypt in 1913 BCE. Later, Isis was thought to have taught her children the secrets of beer making. Hathor, the goddess of drunkenness, was also believed to have invented beer. In ancient Egypt, inebriation was a source of mirth and may have been related to religious ecstasy. That's really interesting. Beer was an integral part of Egyptian life and even had a place in a dream interpretation. Dreaming of drinking beer made of wheat foretold joy, while dreams of drinking barley beer meant that the dreamer would continue to live. Aside from its use as a food, medicine, and ritual offering, beer was also utilized in magic. To prevent disturbing dreams, I use it in magic. To prevent disturbing dreams, certain herbs were moistened with beer. I like that idea. The wet leaves were then rubbed on the dreamer's face while an incantation was spoken. That's really cool. Okay, the Sumerians, Egyptians, and Babylonians brewed beer with wheat and barley, but barley beer was their preferred beverage. It was the most popular drink to both humans and their deities in the ancient world, until wine took its place. Okay. Wine. The Egyptians, so yeah, that was on beer, and now we're on to wine. The Egyptians have associated Osiris with wine. One of his many titles was Lord of the Wine and Inundation, and Osiris is thought to have taught the people of Egypt the cultivation of grapes. Horus was also linked with wine. Red wine represented the eye of Horus, white wine the left. Okay. In the earliest Egyptian dynasties, wine was reserved solely for the higher classes. It was also used during the temple rituals. Did I smear my lipstick? Okay. Priests and priestesses grew the grapes and produced the wine. Commoners apparently didn't drink the divine liquid until rather late in Egypt's long history, perhaps around 1000 BCE. In ancient Egypt, circa 1500 BCE, the presence of the snake goddess Renenuntet, giver of plenty, was invoked during winemaking. On or near the wine press, in which grapes were transformed into juice, were shrines or small figures of Renulet. As popular as grape wine became, however, the rich of the ancient Egyptians continued to enjoy a variety of wines, including those made from dates, and I've also read sesame seeds. In the last dynasties, pomegranates. Wine was a flavored offering in this land. Ramses III reportedly offered 152,103 jars of wine to the temples in Thebes, Heliopolis, and Memphis. Wine of all types were placed among the grave goods left to nourish the dead pharaoh, with the hope that he would come to enjoy the beverage in the next life. And now, lastly, we're talking about from the dairy, and we're talking about milk. Both cows and goat's milk have been linked with deities and with religion. The famous Egyptian goddess Hathor, usually depicted with the head of a cow, provides milk to deceased pharaohs as well as to the living. The cow was revered as her symbol. Many statues of a seated Isis holding her son Horus to her breast may have survived from antiquity. These are often thought to have inspired similar representations of the Virgin Mary holding her son Jesus. The symbolism is the same. Woman, the goddess, during the act of nourishment. Milk was a prime offering to the deities in ancient Egypt. Thutmose III placed gold and silver jars of milk on the altar to Amun. The divine liquid was also offered to Min, the ancient Egyptian deity of fertility. We learned a lot about Min. You guys, I'm sorry that the video went to 30 minutes, but We got a lot on Egypt out of there and lore. So I hope I made it up to you. And I don't want to get off track anymore. It doesn't make me feel happy inside, especially 2 nights in a row. So, have a beautiful day, you guys. And look, my lipstick kind of stayed. Alright, see you soon and come back because I have the day off, so I'm doing videos here all day. Jen, the Taxidermy Witch.